Hey everybody, this is Dr. Holcomb. This is the first of two videos devoted to stasis theory. This week you've read and one of the chapters that you read is Inventing Rhetorically from the Carolina Rhetoric, and a prominent component of that chapter was devoted to stasis theory. So in this video I'm going to primarily focus on what it is. What is stasis theory? In the next video I'll discuss how it is useful in your own writing and in your own analysis of other people's writing. So let's begin. Like the modes of proof, by which I mean ethos, pathos, and logos, and kairos, stasis theory developed as part of classical rhetoric. Actually, the term stasis is, well, one story has it that the term stasis is a metaphor from wrestling. If you imagine two wrestlers, kind of standing off, getting in position to start the wrestling match, that's what they call in wrestling a stasis. So in rhetoric, it's used to describe a collision between the accusation of some speaker and the defense of the other speaker. So to put it a little bit more formally, it is a method for determining the point at issue or dispute so that speakers in a debate do not argue at cross purposes, so that they're not sort of punching into the air. Stasis theory consists of typically four graded questions. There are questions of fact, did it happen? Questions of definition, what is it? Questions of value, is it good or bad? And questions of policy, what should we do about it? Now, stasis theory more specifically emerged in the context of legal rhetoric. It was a way for, when you have a prosecutor and a defendant, it's a way of determining what is the issue at dispute. So let's take an example involving a crime. According to Quintilian, he's a Roman rhetorician from the 1st century BCE, the stasis or point at issue is determined by joining the accusation of the prosecutor to the response of the defendant. Say a prosecutor, there's a case of missing bike, a stolen bike, and they've got a suspect in court, and the prosecutor says, and I guess it happens to be the prosecutor's bike, "You stole my bike." If the defendant responds, "No, I didn't," then the point at issue, or the stasis, is one of fact. It's a question of fact. So as the case proceeds, the prosecutor is obliged to establish the facts, that the defendant did in fact steal the bike, while the defendant has to make the case that for whatever reasons he was out of the state or whatever, he didn't steal the bike. Imagine the same situation, and the prosecutor said, "You stole my bike," and the defendant said, "I borrowed it." There, the defendant is conceding the fact that this bike is now missing, but he's contesting the definition, the prosecutor's definition of it. The act for the prosecutor is theft. For the defendant, at least this is the case that he wants to maintain, it's a borrowing. So there you see how the case would proceed. It would be an argument over how do we define or characterize the actual act. Same situation, the prosecutor says, "You stole my bike." The defendant said, "Yes, but you stole mine." Here, the defendant concedes the fact and concedes the prosecutor's definition of the act, but says that it was justified. It's a question of value. That here, I guess the value at stake is one of retribution, or fair play. And then finally, "You stole my bike," and the defendant said, "Yes, I will return it." There's a question of policy. Questions of policy typically have to deal with what should we do. And so here in the defendant's response, there's a concession that to the fact, to the definition, and to the fact that it was wrong. And then the defendant states what he'll do to repair the damage. Let's look at a more academic example. climate change. This is a very timely topic. And what we can do with stasis theory is analyze a particular debate with greater precision, because it allows us to identify which kinds of questions are at dispute. So in this little example, most scientists and many politicians are currently at the stasis of policy with regard to climate change. That is, they're at the state of determining what we should do in response to it. That is, these scientists and this group of politicians agree that climate change exists. They agree on its definition. They know it's bad, or they contend that it's bad, so they're thinking about what should we do. So their primary question is, we should pass legislation to reduce carbon emissions. That's a policy claim. In other words, it exists, we know what it is, and we know it is bad, so what are we going to do about it? However, when they engage some audiences and some constituents, they have to cycle back down to a lower level of stasis and, for instance, make the case that it exists, that it is, and other constituents, that it's a global and human induced phenomenon, and that it's harmful. So the stasis is tied to kairos in the sense that it will only emerge in a specific context in which a particular speaker is, or writer is, addressing a particular audience. Okay, wow, I managed to get through without running out of time. Okay, this is the end of part 1, and stay tuned for part 2. Bye-bye.